Hi everybody and welcome to the Cambridge Power Platform user group. I hope everybody's here. If you're not, join along. It's absolutely fine. We will be recording this to go on YouTube as well afterwards for anybody that couldn't come along, so don't worry. We're doing this as a live event, which means that I am a whole 30 seconds ahead of you. So what we're going to do this evening is we're going to go through an agenda, same as always, a couple of really great speakers, a couple of bits for me just to point out beforehand, and we're going to be looking at the winner of our competition. So I'm sure we will be interrupted by children, dogs, hungry family members, etc. as we go along. So let's just live with it and see what happens, and let's see what we've got. Let's get started. So first thing to say, please do get virtually social, if that's a term. Don't ignore the social part of what we're doing. Please do tweet and put out on LinkedIn and use the chat to raise questions to the speakers. Like I say, we're a little bit delayed, so we're not going to get your question for a good 30 seconds. So if you could make sure you're getting the question in there as soon as it pops into your mind, that allows us to answer it sort of fairly quickly. Each of the speakers will have their own slot, but if you've got a speaker for somebody a little bit after their session, I'm sure they'll jump back in at the end and do a bit of Q&A anyway. So please do make sure you're keeping in touch with us all, even though we can't physically touch you in a nice way. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about the challenge winner. So for those of you who saw the Flick and Flow challenge, what we were doing is taking a Flick button and looking for people to volunteer their solutions to tell us what they would do with the Flick button. And so we've got a winner for that challenge, which we'll be talking to shortly. We've also got the rather marvellous Chris Hoard doing a presentation for us. Chris is Mr. Teams. He is the guy that I go to for anything Teams, but he's going to talk to us about Teams within the context of the Power Platform. So we've got some really good stuff coming up for that. Followed by I Am Catman himself, the Power Apps genius that is Sancho, who is going to show us all around how he built his template solution, which I hope you've seen by now, but if you haven't, then this is going to be a great session. You're going to love this. He is going to save you so much time. It's insane. So before we do that, just a few updates. Firstly, MVP announcements. So Sancho was announced as an MVP on April the 1st. Congratulations. And so was I, which was massively unexpected, but I am humbled and grateful and all of those lovely things. So thank you very much to everybody who's supported me in the community. You know I'm here for you, and I appreciate you being there back. So thank you for everybody who's been in touch around that. Microsoft Teams, we have the 6-month free license for COVID. If you haven't been able to get hold of that, if you're struggling to be able to get hold of that, get in touch, because every organisation is entitled to be able to claim that, and we can help you get hold of that for your company if you haven't adopted already. I announced this month that my book is coming by the end of the year. So this is talking about getting to value faster. So a bit of personal promotion here, but what I'm after is some contributors. I know a lot of you out there have got large organisations that you're working with where you've got challenges to get over before you can get to the value of fully leveraging your Office 365 licenses. If this is you, get in touch with me. I'd love to interview you and pick your brains about how your experience has gone with getting the Power Platform engaged in your environment. So our big winner. So we set the challenge for what can we do with a Flick button? What can we do that would be different, innovative, or something really useful? And she's on the line. So I would like to introduce and pass over to Victoria, who put a solution through for us that we thought and is now actually quite appropriate, even more so than it was when she submitted it. So Victoria, do you want to tell us what your challenge entry was and why that's important to you?
Yeah, hi. So I work for a housing association based in the east of England. It covers the size of Wales, and just one of our 3 housing companies has 87 housing officers alone. The housing officers spend their day out and about visiting our customers and attending other external meetings. And currently we have no way of tracking their location or whether they got home safe or not. Although it's currently not a problem as we're all working from home. While catching up with a colleague who recently became a housing manager, he was receiving a lot of emails from his team, and they all just said, "I'm safe," to let him know that they were home safe. We don't know how it came about, but it seemed very labour intensive and could lead to loads of failings if that housing manager was on annual leave or sick, or he couldn't get around to checking his emails. So when this was presented, I thought this could be a great solution to their problems. The idea would be for a housing officer to have a flick button, and then there could be 2 flows set up from it. One to record when the button was pressed, and this would populate the date and time when they pressed it to say they were safe against a register of housing officers, either in SharePoint list or a database, depending on your licensing. The second flow would be set up on a recurrence, so at an agreed upon time of the day, this could get all the items from the database where either the date is empty or the date doesn't match today's date. This could then create a table of results for who hasn't checked in and generate an email. My thought was to send this to our call centre who operate 24/7. So this is always manned, and then that negates the issue of a manager being on leave. It's then their responsibility to call the housing officer just to check on their safety. You could also generate a Power BI report or dashboard from it as well if you wanted to capture that. In the future, I think we could integrate it with our HR data, so we could exclude those people that are on annual leave or sickness so they don't get caught up in the results. This would then lead to an automated process, and it's centralised, so we don't have the risk of people being missed, and we know all our staff are safe at the end of the day. I think also, because I haven't got the button yet, there's a function to send your location. So this would be perfect as well if a housing officer felt threatened in a property. They could press a button maybe once or hold it, and this could ping to the call centre their location immediately. As I said, I'm really excited to get back to the office so I can pick up the button and have a play with it myself.
Yeah, the irony there in that we sent you the button and you haven't been in the office since. So challenges.
Yeah. But I have managed to set up some flows just with like the recurrence and doing a basic example, so it would just be a case of hooking in. But yeah, I'm excited for it.
Very good, well done. So yeah, again, it was a really innovative solution that seemed to be more appropriate than, you know, just finding something that was really high business value, because this takes into account, you know, safety, livelihood, as well as the business being able to monitor and take care of their people in a way that, you know, you guys really need to. So congratulations, that was a great suggestion, and I hope you enjoy your flick button when you get hold of it. And should we ever get to the summit at Barcelona, I'd be delighted if you would come along and join me on stage, either virtually or in person would be great, to let the world see your idea if we can get it built by then.
Yeah, great, that would be awesome, thank you.
You're more than welcome. Okay, so moving on. I'd like to introduce Chris. If you don't know Chris, I urge you to go and follow him. This guy has got a ridiculous amount of followers on his blog, and the reason is the content is just so good. So I've seen Chris present, and I've followed his current series specifically for COVID around the team stuff. But I will shut up and let Chris do all the talking and hand over.
Yeah, it's been really fantastic to be here. I've known Sharon for a while now, and I've spoken with her at quite a few events recently over the past couple of years. She has spoken for myself at Teams Fest a few months ago and back in October, and it's just a fantastic opportunity to come along and talk about Teams and talk about the Power Platform and how the two interact. So the session that I'm holding today is called "The Most Productive Teams Are Empowered," and what to expect from this session over the course of about the next 45-50 minutes is about the value of Teams and the Power Platform together. We're going to look at a number of scenarios about how the two can interact together, and we also throughout the session want to give you a kind of some call to actions to really get started today, get hands-on, and to learn more. I'd like to think of this session as a bit of a starting point, because people that are there with the Power Platform are not always with Teams, and vice versa, but they really are better together, and I hope coming out of today that you feel that too. So where do we start with all of this? Well, just before I get to starting to talk about Teams, it really comes to defining what we mean by empowerment. I've called it this session, the most productive teams are empowered. We use the term power within the Power Platform. And so I started to think about what empowerment means. And when we give it its kind of narrow definition, it's to give somebody the power or authority to do something. Now, that could mean that they can go ahead and do something. It can mean that we are kind of, let's say, for example, automating that allows them to do something else, but it is to give them the ability to act. And we can talk about empowerment in terms of an individual. So like when we give a member of the team the ability to make frontline decisions or to be able to work in an autonomous way. We can empower businesses. For example, the government empowers businesses through laws, or as we will see today, we can empower teams. So we can empower teams with skills, with knowledge, with tools, with their ability to be able to make frontline decisions, and that they can act a little bit more autonomously and hands-on. So this word empowerment is one that Microsoft uses within its mission statement. So if you've ever been to a Microsoft conference, or if you've ever been to something like Ignite, then you will hear it time and time again, their mission statement, and to empower every person, every organization on the planet to achieve more. I think that's quite a well-known mission statement. But the mission statement of Microsoft is different from its vision statement. So whilst the mission statement is about the here and now, the vision statement is where Microsoft wants to get to, and that desired future state is to help businesses throughout the world realize their full potential. So that is not so well known. So what Microsoft are kind of saying is they want to empower people, they want to be able to give people the authority and power to act. But that is a means to realizing their full potential. And this is a really good analogy for really starting to think about Teams and the Power Platform together. Now, when we talk about Teams, Teams is the hub for teamwork. It's all about communication and collaboration. We are bringing together in one space chat, files, meetings and calling, and apps. It's about that one centralized workspace where the team can come together, and whether they co-author files, or whether they chat together in a group chat, or whether they have a conference call, they can do so, and by bringing it all together, they become more productive. And Teams is an application which has empowered individuals, it's empowered teams within their organizations, and it's empowered businesses. And I think it's important to very briefly go over the kind of the story of Teams. So Teams came out of Skype for Business Spaces back in 2016, and it's really had a meteoric rise. So in the course of 3 years, it's won Enterprise Connect twice. It's grown, as you can see there in the top left, to over 500 thousand businesses using the platform. Now, midway through last year at Microsoft Ignite, they then came out and said that it had overtaken Slack in terms of the number of daily active users. So if you can think at this point that in July 2019, 13 million users were using Teams every day, and following hot on the heels of that, it was named best in terms of unified communications as a leader by Gartner, and best in terms of enterprise content management by Forrester. So Teams is an application and a platform that's a leader in communications, in collaboration and teamwork. Now, in the past year since that was announced, you can see on the left-hand side, last year, 500,000 organizations are using Teams, 91% of the Fortune 100, whereas this year is grown even more. So we're seeing 93 of the top Fortune 100 companies using Teams. But look at this massive growth in terms of the enterprise. Last year, 150 organizations with 10,000 or more users were using Teams, whereas this year, 650 plus. It's expanded into 181 markets and 53 languages. So this is what has been fueling the growth. In addition, the latest figures that were announced just last month. So think of that 13 million daily active users back in July. In November, that went to 20 million daily active users. And last month, 44 million daily active users. That's a 120% increase in just 4 months. Now, in the same article, and you can see the article that's down on the left-hand side, Microsoft said that within that, in just 7 days, the Teams platform grew by 12 million users. That's an absolutely astronomical number. And the type of metrics that are in that article include the fact that on one single day, 900 million minutes of meeting and calling from around the world. And that has kind of oscillated around that number ever since. So that's an absolutely mammoth rise. Now, in terms of what has kind of fueled that rapid ascent, well, we can kind of put it down in some senses to the functionality adds. So as you can see, I'm not going to drain this kind of whole slide, but the tech community were asking for things within Teams such as private channels or shared system audio or information barriers. All the things you can see on this were being asked for. So Teams as an application and as a platform is maturing, and it has done a significant amount over the course of this last year. So that can be attributed to some of the growth that we're seeing. But there are other factors as well. The first is that Teams as an application is resonating with both users and organizations. It's at the core of Microsoft's strategy. So here in the UK, you may have seen advertisements for Microsoft Teams that were going around in the last year. There's a very strong community that's built up around Teams. There are kind of two communities in the Microsoft world, which I think are the most fervent. One is Teams and the other is Power Platform. They have got absolutely immense communities where people take a lot of their time to help organizations drive their use of these applications. And the fourth, which I think has been the big one, is COVID-19 and the rise in remote working. You would have seen the numbers in March, absolutely 12 million daily active users growth. That's going to be because with the current scenario, we have to work remotely, and what better application to use than Teams. So we now kind of start getting on to talking about Teams and the Power Platform. Now, when Teams is introduced into organizations, organizations typically use what we could call the out-of-the-box experience, and they start with the foundational workloads. So we can see at the bottom here, they typically start, users within inside the organization start using chat and files. They may go on to start using meetings, and as they start getting up this scale, they might start using some more advanced stuff such as calling and apps. Organizations might start putting the security down. But what we see kind of less, or in a really small part of organizations today with Teams, is their use of the Power Platform and their use of SPFX. And of course, today we're focusing on the Power Platform. But with the Power Platform, we are moving away from this out-of-the-box experience and out-of-the-box functionality. And what we're seeing is we're starting to see a move into customization and enhancement, both on a team level and on an organization level. And this is really important because as we start kind of thinking of Teams, we move away from thinking of it as an application to thinking of it as a platform. And when we start engaging and bringing in the Power Platform to use with Teams to begin to customize it and enhance it for Teams, that's when we're seeing the real big productivity gains within organizations. And we're going to explore that a little bit now. So one, I guess, is my first recommendation is when talking to organizations about one or either, and particularly about Teams, is to kind of pivot the narrative. The traditional narratives all surround this out-of-the-box experience. I could say that Teams is the hub for collaboration and communication. I can kind of evangelize all its collaboration features. I can evangelize all the security measures that we can put down upon Teams. But I was in a meeting maybe about a year ago for a partner of ours in Ireland, and the conversation got all onto talking about Power Apps because they are an organization that are very much into Power Apps, and they had several developers. And what kind of didn't strike me, or the penny dropped as it were, was that Teams is really a doorway to get into the Power Platform and all of these experiences that we could give to teams and to users that were not really previously thought about. So, for example, if I'm talking about Power Apps, I would talk about the limits of Teams, and the fact is that not all of the applications within Teams could really meet the business kind of requirements and needs by those users and teams. So if you think of Teams as almost as a platform, as a framework to deliver these like kind of applications, these low code, no code applications, then it suddenly becomes very, very valuable to organizations. In addition, if we talk about Power Automate, that's all about automation and freeing up time of users. It's, you know, when we have the conversation about Teams, there are things in Teams that take a long time to do. Why not be able to automate that kind of behind? Why not be able to kind of link the applications within the Teams platform together to be able to do the things that we need them to do? And the third, you know, when we're talking about Power BI, we can surface those visualizations within the team to make better and faster data-driven decisions. Because a lot, you know, you imagine a meeting where there is no data to kind of back up what people are trying to say. We can kind of make better strategies, and we can get to faster decisions by literally surfacing the data, which in many times we can't make sense of, back into the team and making that visible amongst the team. So it produces much better results. So what I'm going to talk about in a minute in terms of the scenarios, I'm not going to cover virtual agents today because that is quite a deep subject. So I'd love to come back another time and talk about that. So in order to basically show you how Teams and the Power Platform interact, I kind of want to do a little bit of a thought experiment here. And I'm kind of designed this so as a scenario. So I head up a team within the business. The 6 people that you see here are all part of the team. And we kind of had a meeting in Teams, and we were discussing how Teams is limited and that we needed to use the Power Platform in order to be able to enhance that. So if you could see the feedback from Adam here, Adam is saying to me, the Teams doesn't have the ability to let us know more about members of the team. He wants Teams to be able to show the bios and the responsibility of each of the team members. In terms of Amanda's feedback, Amanda is saying to me that we really need something that could capture the meeting notes and to be able to assign tasks to users as an outcome of that meeting. Again, that's a functionality that Teams doesn't have. So those are two kind of use cases that would be ideally suited to Power Apps. In terms of two scenarios that would be suited to Power Automate, Vesku was telling me it would be amazing if we could add a welcome message when somebody joins a team, because the current experience of us just being added to a team isn't good enough. We get added. How do we know where to go? How do we know what the channels are really all about? One is feeding back to me that he wants to be kept up, kind of up to date on the Power Platform. He wants to be able to bring in integration with Twitter so that we can be notified and bring those notifications to us in the team, as opposed to us having to repeatedly go to Twitter and try to kind of keep up with what's going on. That's just not tenable for all the members of the team. Now, moving on to Power BI, Chris is telling me that we need to get better oversights of Microsoft 365. And rather than jump into the kind of panel within Power BI to go and see that, we need to be able to surface that in Teams, almost like a team for managing the Microsoft 365 instance within inside our environment. And then finally, we have Yannick that's telling me that, he's managing Teams migrations for our customers, and he can't easily tell and compare where they are or visually be able to see that. So I'm getting all this feedback by saying, overall the team members are happy with Teams, but there are limitations with the kind of out of the box experience. So we need to turn our attention to the Power Platform in order to be able to solve these challenges. So the first one, when we take Adam's case in terms of showing the bios, the solution in order to be able to meet what Adam wants to see in our team is from creating a Canvas app. So there are four very easy steps. We are creating and saving the Canvas app. We're downloading the zip file. We're uploading it to Teams, and we'll configure it as a personal or a tab in the Teams channel. So I'm just going to kind of jump out now and show that. So within Power Apps, here you can see that the app as it is, as I've created it. Now, of course, this is only for demo purposes, so it is very crude, as it were. I've got one screen as a start screen. I've got a second screen that's built off a gallery, and I've got a third screen of which has the bio and surfaces things like past projects or links out to it, the Twitter and LinkedIn profile, and also surfacing Microsoft Stream through that. So once I've created the Power App, I can then go and save the Power App. So you can see that the Power App is now saved. And what I will then do is I will then go and add it to Teams. So by clicking adding to Teams, I will then be able to export that as a zip file, which would download to my local machine. Now, in order to be able to get it into Teams, so here we are within Teams, I would then go to the app catalog down on the left hand side, and then I would simply select down the bottom, upload a custom app, and then I would upload that for my organization. And once I've done that, you will then see in the app catalog, it will say built for your organization. And there we go. That bio app is now being uploaded. So we've created it. I created this application within the space of about an hour, downloaded it from Power Apps, uploaded it into Microsoft Teams. Now I can add it in two places. So within inside, so if I come into my team and I come into the channel, I've added it as a tab to my team. So, you can do that very simply by going to add, find it in Power Apps, and then it would add. And then once it loads up, it will find an app within inside your organization that you're built, and then you can simply click save and then add it. And as you can see from the bio app, I'm clicking start. So I want to find out about, Adam in a bit more detail. I come along and there we go. I can now start. Okay, you're not going to be able to hear this because you can't through kind of live meetings. And then, so I can add it as a tab, but I can also add it if I wanted to kind of not have it in a team, but I wanted all users to be able to use it, be able to add it as a personal app. So I'm just going to go find that. There we go. I can have it down on the app bar on the left hand side too. So that is the first solution, and we've solved a business problem in this. We've solved what Adam wants to see, but we don't really have to think about this in terms of just this bio app. Okay, for bios, we can have this app and do it for, if we're, team building and orientation, we can have that app as a training instruction manual. We can have it for as a product portfolio. So if you can kind of envision just by what we've shown, you can have an app doing what this app does for many different things within your business. Let's move on to solution 2. So we completely built that Canvas app from scratch using the tools that are kind of at our disposal. Now, maybe we haven't got time to build that app, or maybe we want to take advantage of other people who have built apps. So the community, the Power Apps community, is fantastic for doing this. So if I just kind of jump out and then go to, this is one by Razor. I'm sure you know Razor. He kind of rebuilt something called the meeting capture app. He put all the files, the MS app files, on GitHub. So in order to be able to get this into Teams, all we needed to do is to download that MS app file. What we then do is we open that app, like MS app file within Power Apps, and same process as before. We download it as a zip file, upload it to Teams, and we can configure it as a personal app or as a tab. So I downloaded it by literally clicking the button, opening that up here. Okay, within Power Apps, you can see there is the app, and do exactly the same thing as before, as in downloading the app and as a zip file and uploading to Teams. And just in that meeting capture, so here we go. So it's just going to get the data. Here you can see that I have my meeting. So if I go to my calendar, there's my meeting for later on today. So the meeting capture app will then, if I were then to start that meeting, okay, I would then use this alongside the meeting, and I would then go and take my notes. Okay, I would then add tasks to the I can see all my attendees. I can see all my kind of meeting details. I've got the ability to be able to sketch within this. So I'm using a surface. So I'm just sorry for I've got kind of short fingers. Okay, I can then do attach files. I could even attach audio. I can upload any photos that I want to that. So this is, again, rich functionality that we're not seeing in the out of the box experience. But here's one of the best ones. So if I want to have tasks as kind of, tasks that are gonna, task 1, I then assign it, let's say, to Adam. Okay, and then I save that. Okay, I have another task, and I'm going to assign that to Vesku. Okay, I finish and save. I then sync my tasks to Planner. Okay, and then I can follow up also with an email. Okay, so we finished taking notes, and we can go to schedule a follow-up meeting if we want. And then if we leave it for a certain time, okay, there we go. You can see the tasks are there. All the people within the meeting has been emailed with all those notes, with all the attachments. That is a fantastic example of how Power Apps and Teams can combine together. So in terms of how we manage that kind of integration. It's important to briefly discover, and how we can prepare the Teams environment to get ready for Power Apps. So I'm just going to go into the Teams Admin Center. I hope you've all seen this. The section that's the important section here in the Teams Admin Center is here under Teams Apps. And if we go to Manage Apps, this is the first. So we need to go here in the top right-hand side to Org-wide Settings. And it's really important that we have custom apps to be set for on. If that is set for off inside the organization, you won't be able to upload Power Apps here. So where we were in the app catalog earlier, upload a custom app, that won't be possible for your users to be able to do. So it's really important that in order to prepare for people creating these apps, that we allow custom apps and have that setting on. So that's the first point. The second point is within the permission policies. This actually allows specific users to have access to those apps. So we can control which users have access. So say, for example, you might just want a certain part of your organization to have access to these apps. So you can say, yes, I want Power Apps to be in 50% of my organization. Well, you can actually define that by the actual apps permission policies. So it always starts off in Teams with a global that's already pre-populated. But if we wanted to create another one, say for example for developers, we can do so. And then your Power Apps would fall under this one, which is the tenant apps. So you can actually, block it for certain people or permit it for certain people. The third to note is the app setup policy. So app setup policies define what people see in the app bar here in Teams. So if I can see this down the side, let's take the global org-wide default. You can choose. So if I wanted, for example, everyone within the organization to see that bio app that Adam wanted created, I absolutely can do, and then save it. And within a few hours, okay, people would see that bio app appearing. So that is really good if you wanted to be able to push that out around the organization without users doing anything. And it's also important to, that uploading those custom apps aren't just set on an org-wide policy. They can also be set on, a group or user by user basis by the app setup policy, as you will see there. So you could allow the majority of people inside the organization to upload apps, but then specifically restrict it for certain people inside the org. If you didn't want to, you would just push it out to them with the app setup policy. So 3 calls to action for Power Apps then. The first is leverage those sample apps and the community apps to get started. Inside so if I jump into the apps here, okay, and you want to go to create, you will see that there are lots of templates that could be useful to you, or at least give you some ideas as where to start out from and looking at those use cases. The second is to identify and foster makers. It's having a conversation with businesses to say, why aren't users creating apps? Why aren't they creating apps that can be pushed into Teams and making your whole Teams experience better? I ask this of our partners and our customers. They say, I don't know why, I don't do that. So use the stuff within this deck to show them and give them demonstrations of how valuable it is, and get stakeholders in each of the teams within organizations to start building apps for their teams. The third is to continue learning with MS Learn and Power Platform fundamentals. Okay, push this in all directions. Try to get as many people in through as many hooks as possible. So now moving on to the flow actions, okay, and just keeping an eye on the time here. With flow, it's all about automation, and we're going to go from the case that Vesku asked us about. So he wants us to be able to have a welcome message when everyone joins a team. Now, this is a nice thing to have. It's a nice way to get Power Automate in the front door with a lot of organizations. This is, because many people want people to feel a part of the team. It's very good for fostering that sense of camaraderie. Now, how we create this is in 3 easy steps. We add the flow, okay, as personal app within the team. Okay, so we can build this right out of Teams should we want to do so. So inside our team, you can see I'm adding flow as an app and pinning it again to that left app rail. I can then look at my flows or start building my flows. So here we go. And I've built this particular flow as a team flow, which actually means that, all members of the team have ownership and administer this flow, not just myself. Okay, now I'm going to open this flow. And I'm just going to break this apart about how easy it is to be able to create this flow. So I'm using a Teams trigger. And when a new member is added, so you can see this in preview, we're going to see a lot deeper integration between Microsoft Teams and Power Automate, where they are bringing in more and more triggers. This is something that is long needed to happen. What we then do is we then get the user profile from an Office 365 action, and then we post the message and we define our message, and we can set what team and what channel we put it to. Typically, it's the general channel within a team because that's where people first land, and then we can set what it is that what we want that user to be able. As you can see here, welcome to our new tenant. It outlines what the channels do and asks everyone to give them a warm welcome to the team, because hopefully the other team members will like that and they will respond, and that will make that new member very comfortable within a team. Now let's go and see what that looks like. Okay, so within the team, just going to go into our general channel, so back into posts. Okay, I'm going to scroll up here. So every single time a new user is added, that is what they will see inside their team. And I think that's a fantastic, kind of way to show people the powers, that it's really, really simple. I mean, the flow doesn't have to be complicated to have the impact and lands where it needs to. But that is like a 101 flow that can start the conversation going. So, and guess what? We've saved time writing messages. Imagine that I had to add 25 people to a team. That saved me writing 25 messages to welcome people to the team. It allows me to do so in a standardized method, and it saved time inside the orientation too. I don't necessarily want to be able to explain what each of those channels does or what their functions are, but in creating one single flow, I've managed to do all that. And so every time we add a new user to the team, we will get that pop-up. So I go to my team, simply add a new member. Okay. So I'm going to add Yannick. He's now a member. Let's see how quickly then that comes up. Okay, I'm just going to go and get around this today. So I'm going to go into my flow. Okay, I'm just going to go and test that flow. I'm going to perform the trigger. And we're going to see how quickly that turns up. So we'll return to that. Oh, there we go. That's how quick it was. That's fantastic. Now Yannick feels all good, and we'll hopefully have a lot of engagement in this. Okay, so reply. and then he'll get a mention, he'll get notified, and that's a great. The second, we're going to look at what Juan needs. So he wants to be kept up to date on the Power Platform. He doesn't want to keep spending all of his time checking Twitter, trying to find the latest news. We want to bring that to us. Now, Microsoft retired the connector for Twitter, and I took kind of a bit of umbrage because I used the connector quite a lot for a lot of things. So I thought I'd just go out and build one myself. So again, we add Flow as a personal app or as a tab in the team. But then what we do is we design the adaptive card because we want the experience to look, and that's what the experience looks like. So you can see that it's kind of working inside our environment. If I wanted to, I could go to the tweet and have a look. There we go. Or I could actually view the user itself. So this is pretty much what the Twitter connector did. Now, how did I actually get that card? Well, what I actually did was go and use the adaptive card designer. So I've just posted it here as a tab inside the environment. So you can select the application that you want to work with. So I'm Microsoft Teams in light mode, and then I can start kind of removing parts and setting what I actually want it to look like. And the output of that, okay, is that we get our payload down the bottom. Now, we would keep that payload once we've got the card looking what we wanted to look like. Let's go back in again to Flow. So look at, our flows. And you can see here is my Twitter flow. I'm going to edit that. I'm just going to break those open. So we have a trigger for Twitter, okay? And we state if anything comes from Power Automate, and we can do, lots in here by literally adding dashes and mentions. So it doesn't just have to be for Power Automate. And then we use the action, the new one that's in preview, to post your own adaptive card, and we take that payload from the designer, and then we start populating that with what we actually want to see. Now, if you do go to my blog at microsoft365pro.co.uk, I've got a blog on there. I've got a step-by-step. I've got a copy of this payload that you can just inject, into this flow when you build it. And then the outcome, by going back to our team and going to general, is that we will have our adaptive card with the tweet that comes into our environment. And we can do that from several sources. It doesn't just have to be from Twitter. We've saved time checking Twitter. Okay, it captures all the posts. It posts to the whatever channel that you've set it to once every hour. That's probably the downside from the Office 365 connector, where the Office 365 connector previously done it as soon as the post came along. This would kind of download, or post to the channel every hour. It also, at this point, okay, doesn't have mentions, as you will see, or kind of links, but they are easy copyable enough, and hopefully in later iterations, we'll be able to get the links and mentions in there. Then we would have fully replicated that functionality. So again, you're seeing the power of Power Automate and Teams come together with this. You can post this up for the whole team. You can look at what your competitors are doing. You can follow kind of key thought leaders on Twitter. You can, it's not just Twitter. You can also use this in concert with the existing connectors that are already there. So Power Automate, it's got unlimited use cases. I could do you a couple of hour, session easily. I mean, when we're thinking about Teams, it's not just about how Power Automate and Teams interact. look at some of the use cases here. We can use it for form responses that come into channels. We can look at for approvals. We can do it on planner notifications. So when somebody completes a task within Planner, it then surfaces within a channel, let's say that the project manager is dealing with. You can do it for alerting. You know, following on from that thread of doing welcome emails, you could set up a flow that posts the daily weather into the team every single day for travel conditions or for meeting reminders. So as things come close and people are working more and more in teams, if you have a channel meeting, for example, in a team, you can post up a meeting reminder. So what's good to know, and just some advice on starting to work between Power Automate and Teams, get to know those Teams flow templates. So if I jump into, I'm just going to go into here and then just literally click on the templates, and then we can define that by Teams. There's already a load of predefined templates that are going to give you some ideas on how to use Power Automate with Teams. Secondly, get to know the Teams triggers and actions. So when I was in my, so if I go to create a new flow, okay, I'm just going to create a new automated flow, okay. Know what starts to kind of trigger, and know what the team's actions are as well. So get familiar with them too. Get to know the applications you use in Teams and how that they can interact. Okay, then it is all a case of knowing how to build a flow, and which is what this group is perfect for, what YouTube is perfect for, what the Power Platform community is perfect for. Grab your test environment, and then just go for it and see, what flows you can actually build. So 3 calls to action on Power Automate. Okay, test and build those flows using Teams today. Okay, and get your test environment and get hands-on. The second is to perform time and motion studies. Time and motion studies are typically dreaded within Teams because what it is I'm doing, but if you kind of almost wrap them in a case of is that we're looking to help you focus on the things that you want to focus on, the more creative and profitable things, and we can then look to automate some of the things that take you a lot of time inside your working day. So by performing time and motion studies, they're great as almost like a double blind for starting to be able to implement Power Automate within your teams. And then the third, like Power Apps, continue with MS-LAN, continue with the Power Platform fundamentals. Now, as we're heading towards the end of the session, we're looking at the 2 solution cases for Power BI working with Teams. So with Chris's case, he wanted better oversights to adopt Microsoft 365 and see our Microsoft 365 usage with outside the organization. He needs to quick reference the information and be able to make a call on that information. This is, again, like the Power Automate flow that we saw just a moment ago. This is the perfect way, because in every rollout of Office 365 and Microsoft 365 within the business, the usage analytics should be monitored. So this is a great way to kind of almost sneak Power BI in from the very start. And here are the 5 steps. So we install the usage analytics into the Power BI dashboard. So if I come now, okay, to the Power BI dashboard, and I come here to apps, okay, and I get my app, okay, and I select apps, I will be able to search, okay, and add, there we go, our Microsoft 365 usage analytics. Go and get it now, and then it will install it. Then we enable the use of the Microsoft 365 data in the admin portal. So in order to be able to use this app, you need to be able to set it within Microsoft 365. So within the admin center, I would then come down to the reports and the usage, and you can see that I've already enabled it here inside my this demo tenant, but there will be a button here that says to enable it, which would allow you to be able to enable that usage analytics. The third step, in order to be able to do that, is to connect your data with your tenant ID. If any of you don't know how to get that, we would actually do that in the Azure AD admin center. So if I'm in my Microsoft 365 admin center, I then kind of literally just click this button here to get to Azure AD. In Azure AD, within the overview, you would see there is my tenant kind of ID, which I just make a copy of. And then I would go back into Power BI, and then I would configure it with that tenant ID. What would then happen is, okay, so if I just click on, I can then install it into my team. So if I just come into the dashboard here, and I'm just going to show you an example of what that would actually look like. So here we go. Now this is just a demo. So I've surfaced the demo data because it takes a while to actually see the data in this, and you'll need to have a look at it over time. But I can make a call on seeing how many people are using Teams, how many people are using Exchange, how many people are using SharePoint or OneDrive, what is their actual touch points on this. And then I can go either into an overview, or I can go into the licensing, or this is probably the one that I'm most interested in terms of the product usage and what people are actually using within inside their environment. So I could meet Chris's kind of need here, because if I install this within inside my environment, and the limitation is that you can only install it as a tab. So a tab here within a team as opposed to a personal app, but you can have the benefit of giving targeted work rollouts, and it highlights the strategic need within the business. So if I'm looking inside my team and I'm thinking, well, hey, look, you know, in the overview, Teams usage is really, really high. That's great. But Yammer usage is really, really low. Maybe we need to do something about that, and maybe we need to drive it out inside the organization. The Microsoft usage kind of analytics is one that you can use straight away, but you can also use various third-party applications as well within Power BI, and within the apps. I'm just taking this one by modality. So Tom and the guys over at Modality, they've created a wonderful Power BI dashboard application where if I then go into my team and again surface it like the usage statistics, it's just going to bring up this report. You can then really deep dive into Teams usage and seeing exactly what it is that they're using within that team and what teams. So if I go dive into the team statistics here, how people are using channels, how people are using files, how they're using messages, and looking at kind of boiled down engagement scores. Because again, this can focus on our efforts to actually roll out Microsoft Teams. Now, we can install what is kind of already there, but most often or not, okay, we need to build our own. It's a bit like a Power App. There might not be something out there that exists for the data that we want to visualize and have our analytics on. And this is very easy to do. So we upload the Excel. Okay, we can do this in Excel. You can connect Power BI to a whole range of data sources, but I just want to show you probably from what most people start out with is an Excel file. So I'm just going to open this Excel file here. This is an Excel file that I literally kind of built in 5 minutes, like last night, about 20 customers, what their team status is, so whether they're all using Teams or whether they're all on Skype or whether they're kind of in islands between the two. Are they, have they rolled out Teams for chat? Have they rolled out Teams for files? So are they actively, or are they still using on-premise file servers? And are they using Teams for calling and meetings? We want to find this, and we want to look at all of those 20 customers, because if we can kind of visualize and see what's going on, then we might be able to target our efforts to how we actually handle the rest of these migrations. So that's just a very simple example of what we're trying to achieve here. Now, we create our Power BI workspace. So I'm going to go into Power BI. Okay, we see I've got workspaces. We can just create our workspace. Once the workspace is created, okay, I'm just gonna, we can then build our reports. As you can see here, I'm building one of a migrations workload. So here we go. This is what it actually looks like. So if I were to, you know, kind of edit this. So here we go. Just go to report. Sorry, I was in the dashboard. Okay. I can then go and build. So if I edit that report, here you can see on the right hand side my data. So if I jump back into this table, it's now surfaced here, okay, within the Power BI. I can then surface that and then start to build visualizations based off that. Now, as you can see here, you can see that the count for chat, you know, most people are using chat, okay, but far less people are using it for calling. And their status is that ideally, in the ideal world for Microsoft Teams, we want them in Teams only status. We've still got some way to go to be able to do that. Now, how to take this from being a report in Power BI to Teams is very easy. Inside my team, I then go to dashboards, and like the kind of predefined usage analytics and the app by modality, I would then simply go to add a Power BI tab, and then I would select my workspace and the report that I created, and then save that. And there we go. Now, the cool thing about this is it's interactive. So if I was to click on, for example, who are the customers that are the 40% that haven't got call-in, there we go. It could list them out. So we could actually make that decision very, very quickly to see what customers we need to target to be able to roll out call-in and meetings with inside their business. In addition, the same would apply for which ones are on Skype for Business only. It would then show you exactly. So these people are on Skype for Business. They're not using calling. They're not using chat. They're not using files. They're maybe the ones that we are going to prioritize in this given situation. And here's the cool thing is that you can create channels in Teams that have all these dashboards within them. So almost like a kind of a decision-making center for your team, that you can put them all alongside each other, those custom-built reports, as well as those apps that are ready to go and put into the channel. So 3 calls to actions on Power BI then. Get hands-on and build that report. Test it out with Excel, like we were kind of saying with Power Automate, in building them flows based upon Teams triggers and Teams actions, or on apps that you are currently using within a team. Get hands-on to build a report, get an Excel file up, test it, surface it within Microsoft Teams. That report took me maybe about 20 minutes in order to be able to get to the point where I was creating the Excel to actually putting it there within Microsoft Teams. In terms of the culture change, push for a culture of data-driven decisions, should I say. When you're in meetings, call it out. You know, what have you got that's going to prove what it is that you're trying to say, or what the decision making that you want to go. RMD is really good for this. I mean, he has that Power BI dashboard or report to hand in the meeting. So what he's saying can be referenced to that Power BI dashboard. Thirdly, again, with the other areas of Power, of the Power Platform, continue learning with MS Learn and the Power Platform fundamentals. So it's important, as we're driving the education of Teams, to also drive it for the Power Platform, and the community, again, just to say, is so wonderful, and I know that probably goes without saying. Now, to finish off in terms of the use cases, I've kind of siloed how you can use Power Apps in Microsoft Teams, how you can use Power Automate with Teams, and how you can use Power BI with Teams. But there are solutions out there that are a little bit more advanced, where you can combine and use all three together. And the best example that I could probably use for this is the Crisis Communications app, which Microsoft have brought out. It's a free application that you can install into Teams today. Now, that's a combination of two Power Apps. So you have one user application and you have one management application. You have three flows, and those flows basically take the data from the application and then house that within SharePoint lists within your SharePoint instance. You also have a Power BI dashboard to kind of give you the metrics on the responses coming through. All of that, though, is hidden away from users, because this is what users will see in front of them. And within this application, they can read company news on the crisis. They can read world news, so you can pull that as RSS feeds into this application. You've got helpful tips, FAQ. Now, this doesn't just have to be for COVID-19. It's a great way to use it in Teams today alongside COVID-19. But this is for a crisis, right? So this could be for droughts, floods. This could be for, if we think of Fukushima, in the nuclear power plant accident. This can be for many different kind of crises. This could be an internal crisis, for example, within an organization when, things are not going so well. This could be used for a whole range of actions. And of course, this is very interactive as well. So if you can see in the bottom right hand corner, you have your emergency contacts, you have your requests. This could be a lifeline for many people that the business takes, as part of its corporate social responsibility to feed information to their users every day, to keep them updated. So to kind of almost go back to the start, I think you will see from all of these solutions that customizing and enhancing Teams is going to make people even more productive than they already are by using the out-of-the-box functionality. This is really probably the key slide of the lot. By just using the out-of-the-box experience with Teams, they're not reaching their potential. If we think of Microsoft's mission statement, which is to empower every kind of person on the planet to achieve more, that is not their end goal. Their end goal is for people and organizations and teams to reach their full potential. Teams within organizations are not going to reach their full potential unless they use the Power Platform to be able to act on their data, to be able to automate and save them time to focus on more creative things, and to also make data-driven decisions. So this is the kind of the key point, and to kind of cycle back and hone in on what the insight is. They can only get so far in the out-of-the-box experience. They need to go on, they need to customize, they need to enhance. And that's the message that time and time again when bringing Teams and the Power Platform together. So a reminder of the calls to actions. Okay, the first kind of area here, or the first of the top three, is really a consistent message to get hands-on. You have to get hands-on with this. This isn't something where they can kind of sit back. This is all about making. This is all about building. And the quicker that we can get people hands-on and get engaged and get involved, this is why I think that the Power Platform community is one of the best in the world, because they are hands-on, pragmatic people that help each other. They help each other to build. The second is to, that kind of culture piece, identify and foster makers. If somebody wants to say, oh, I'd like to build an app, Power App, it's like, IT can't say no, that's what we're here for. Get and identify and foster those makers within inside your business. Perform those time and motion studies with the team to see, well, hey, look, what can we do to get you doing more interesting work and not have to do these repetitive grind work that you're doing with inside your team situation. And then in meetings and wherever you possibly can, push for that culture of making data-driven decisions. Along the bottom, it really is about learning and with Power, getting them onto this kind of Power Platform fundamentals, getting them to have a stakeholdership, because this is such an exciting area. And once you get people in, you never really leave it, because it is such an important part of the future of where we're all going. So returning to the outcomes, I hope I've managed to capture the value of Teams and using it in conjunction with the Power Platform. I hope that I've kind of shown you some real kind of hands-on pragmatic scenarios that can be solved and uses of the Power Platform and Teams together. And I hope that I've really given some kind of tangible calls to actions. So I'd just like to take the opportunity to thank you ever so much. You know, you can reach out to me anytime. My email address is chris.hoard@vusion.cloud. I've got a Twitter account, as Sharon mentioned earlier. I'm also on LinkedIn. I'm on Specialises. My blog that she was referring to was microsoft365pro.co.uk. I've written, so some of the stuff that you've seen here, I've written blogs on. I'll be writing more about Teams and the Power Platform integration within the future. And what's next for me personally, I'm off, like Sharon and like Sancho, doing a lot of community work over this time, probably like all of you. Very busy for the next month, but you know, please feel free to drop in on those sessions online. They're mainly about stream and Teams integration, but I'll be doing a lot more on Power Platform in the future. So I'd just like to take the opportunity to thank the user group for allowing me to attend and present on this occasion. I'd love to come back in the future, and I really hope that you got a lot from this session. So thank you ever so much.
Thank you, Chris. Apologies, we do seem to have a bit of a microphone issue there, so it does keep kind of giving us a bit of sound on the screen. But we do have a question there for you, Chris, which we have published to the list. I don't know if you can see that.
I'm just going to call up the Q&A. Okay, do I think Power Apps in particular will overtake traditional software development eventually? In our company, we have a large dev team, but our centralized BI team can churn out more apps features a lot faster than the dev stream. I think that's an interesting question, and I definitely think that in some cases, I mean, the speed that you can go to market with these solutions, you know, you can build these apps within hours and have them into your environment. You don't have to, you know, the tools are all there for you to use. For me, it's more about being creative and finding those use cases because you have everything there for you. So I do think that, and I've seen organizations principally do all of their applications, you know, through Power Apps. And they, you know, the question is not, can I do this with Power Apps? The actual question is when can I do this with Power Apps? And we ourselves are doing it too. So inside my organization, we, for example, have got an expenses, you know, an old expenses workflow that lives on an old SharePoint online site. And the question, you know, is not, oh, can we go and get an application or purchase this or build one completely from scratch? We'll just do it in the Power Platform. You know what? That's actually shortened our dev time from potentially, you know, months to doing it within weeks, and potentially days to get that in testing.
I think the wealth of connectors and the ability to connect everything, the already integrated platform, you know, just makes it so powerful that, yeah, I think there is going to be a change in what the devs internally do. I think the workloads will split. So that things that the business can self-help with, it will, and that then leaves the bigger, probably more interesting projects for the devs to get into anyway, and lets the business run its own environment and self-serve, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, there is still going to be some of those cases. You know, I how can I put it? I don't think we're going to see like this sea change to an extent where all applications are suddenly going to be Power Apps and not again. But as Sharon says, you're going to see more and more bigger proportions done through Power Apps, and you're going to, you know, you're going to have, you know, kind of a best of both worlds. And you're going to do things, and the kind of platform. You've got to think that's baked into Microsoft 365. So that, you know, you think about how much of a return on investment that is for you putting it into Microsoft 365 and natively integrating with your other Microsoft 365 applications. Well, I think it's basically a no-brainer.
Agreed. So quick question from me, Chris, other than, are you happy for us to share your slides and put this out on YouTube, which I assume is okay for everybody to see, but also of the upcoming features for Microsoft Teams, what's your favourite? What do you think is going to be awesome?
Oh, do you know what, the one that I'm really looking forward to on a personal level, because see, most people are looking forward to the 3x3 video, because they love the Brady Bunch, and they kind of say, look, it needs to do what Zoom needs to do, right? I'm not so much one in that boat. I'm finding breakout rooms. You see, I'm an MCT, right? The ability to be able to split out a meeting room into several, so that people can go there, they can chill out, they can kind of go and do exercise and then come back into the main meeting. That used to be part of OCS. I think it was back in 2007. Then disappeared for many years. So it's going to take the fight back to Zoom for sure.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. I'm looking forward to the double clicking the chat and pulling that outside as a separate window, because I'm often trying to chat with people at the same time as trying to do something within the Teams environment, and you have to keep kind of coming backwards and forwards. So looking forward to that one.
Absolutely. Multi-window, the first step of multi-window with those chats coming very soon.
Okay, well, I'd like to thank Chris for his time. That was an absolutely fantastic session, massively informative, on about 5 or 6 different applications. So you touched on a great many things. Thank you so much, Chris. That summarised most of the use cases that I've seen around Teams and that full integration piece. So that was an excellent session. Thank you so much for that.